I apologize for being a little bit late. I've had a few technical challenges and somehow I'm locked out of my account. So I'm using Chris's office and appreciate that. I may know some of you from years ago, but I'm happy to be at the department. Honored and humbled by the governor's appointment to have me come up from Cedar City and Southern Utah University. But I look forward to getting to know each of you and having the opportunity to mix and mingle. And please feel free to, if you see me in the halls, you'll know me better than I know you. And I'm still trying to figure out all of the folks that are in this state office building. And so don't hesitate to reach out and say hi. I have been asked since I arrived on Monday morning and participated in the new employee welcome activity if I preferred being called director or Mr. or a whole bunch of things. And as much as I don't care for my name, please call me Marvin or Marv. You don't need to be formal, and I don't need titles and all of those sorts of things. So let me probably best, my team has told me I ought to talk a little bit about myself and let you know, for those of you that haven't or don't know me from years past, I have been in state government in one way or another for the last 29 years and have had a remarkable career that I didn't anticipate. I originally went to school to become a city manager and was pursuing that track with a master's in public administration and hired on to Governor Leavitt's office back in 1994 and was auditing grant programs when I first began and managed to travel across this great state, largely with law enforcement agencies as I did that, and had a great time in that experience. As I announced from time to time that I was going to go find a job in city management and city government, then they would ask me to do something else in that process. And then I had the opportunity to work for Lynn Ward in the governor's office of planning and budget. She hired me to take over managing the budget and policy analyst team. And that was a remarkable experience. And she was a phenomenal mentor. And I learned the ins and outs of the state budget and departments and all sorts of things, which was remarkable and fun, even though in the fall I rarely saw my children awake except on weekends because there were a lot of long days and late nights as part of that process. I worked for three different governors, Governor Leavitt, Governor Walker, and Governor Huntsman after he came in. And when I departed GOPB, I served as this chief financial officer for the Department of Workforce Services with Tawny Downing for a while and had a great time being part of her team. And then after that was the deputy director of the Department of Admin Services at the time, working with Kim Hood. And that was when I got to meet a lot of folks in the department and still have many contacts that it's been wonderful to hear from and chat with since I arrived. And then I departed and ended up going to Snow College in Ephraim, Utah, and had a marvelous time there with President Wyatt and the good folks at Snow. And ultimately, when President Wyatt transferred to Southern Utah University, he invited me to come along and join him. And I've been there for 9 years and love all my friends in Cedar City and at Southern Utah University. And will admit, I've been dehydrated for a couple of weeks because I've cried more tears than any man should. It was a hard goodbye, and it came pretty quick and included our annual graduation in the spring. And so it was an opportunity to say goodbye to a lot of people in that process. So I am married to a beautiful wife, Leslie, who is wrapping up her employment down in Cedar, the Salt Lake Valley, and trying to find someplace for us to live. I've discovered that you pretty much have to be a millionaire to buy a house up in this valley. So we might park our trailer out in the parking lot and just live in that for a while. That would be infinitely cheaper than finding a house. We have 4 kids, 2 boys and 2 girls, and we've 3 of the 4 are married. 3 of the 4 live in Cedar City, and we have 3 grandkids. Our most recent addition to grandchildren is a beautiful little granddaughter who was just born last Thursday morning. So I was grateful to spend some time with her over the weekend before traveling north. And we have another little grandson that will be born in September this fall, and we're looking forward to that addition to our family as well. So I probably ought to pause and just see if there are questions or thoughts, or if you have worries that you're worried about. I'm happy to respond to those as well. I know with any kind of transition in leaders, there's always an inherent nervousness about what's going to happen and where do we go from here. I'm sure many of you are rational enough to realize that I probably will have little impact on your day-to-day job, and I think that's true. I've tried to assure the leadership team here I am not a micromanager. I'm not the kind of person that is coming in to replace the world or change positions or cause a lot of chaos. That's never made sense to me. So I've encouraged everybody to just carry on the day-to-day operations, and I will come up to speed as quick as I can. And that'll be a lot of meetings, and it'll take some time, but I actually look forward to doing it, and meeting with each of you and each of the divisions to get to know things better. And I will add my help, assistance, or what expertise I have along this journey, and we'll just kind of fit into the role. And largely, as you can imagine, much of mine will be on the political side, working with the governor's office and legislators and key leaders in state government and so forth. And I have a lot of friends and know a lot of those folks, so I think hopefully I can represent the department very well and represent our needs and issues and concerns to those who can really make a difference for us, and hopefully I'll be able to do that. So with that, I'm going to pause, but happy to respond to any questions. Stunned silence. That's great. They told me it didn't have to go an hour. So
while we're waiting for some questions, I think it would be good to know that EDO open office hours will still be holding those once a month. So if you want to come in and personally introduce yourself to Marvin, I'm sure that he'd be welcome that opportunity.
Yep. Yes. The staff around me seem to like to plug my calendar full of meetings every hour on the hour. So if you're close and want to wander in, feel free to do so, and I'm happy to chat. If you see the door closed or I'm in a meeting, then my apologies up front, but we'll look for you in the hallways. And I have to say, one of the most exciting things about arriving here was discovering an ice machine, because I've chewed on ice my entire life, and I've broken the ice crusher in my home fridge twice, and have had to replace that. So I'm thrilled that I can bring an empty mug to the office and fill it with ice and water, and that will be one of my favorite features of the building. So. Are there issues? Are there issues that you think I ought to be aware of or need to be researching or focusing on? Not to make any director feel nervous or worried, but I'm interested if there are concerns. I've had a number of folks express concern about the heat in the building, but you guys have lived here longer than I have, so I can't promise a miracle cure there. But I've I had my office at SUU set at 66 degrees and was always quite comfortable. Not sure that our facilities team could get my office down to that temperature, but that would be a nice goal.
So we've got a question in the chat. It says, I know it's been a short time since you've been in office, but what vision might you have for the department?
You cut out there the first part. I didn't hear the first part of it.
I know it's been a short time since you've been in the office, but what vision might you have for the department?
Gotcha. Well, that's a great question. And I'm going to say this has all happened so quick that I don't have, I haven't had time to think through a grandiose vision for the department. And in fact, I scrambled working days and nights and weekends to wrap up all of the projects that I needed to finish at SUU. So Monday morning, I kind of hit things cold and am struggling to come up to speed and read as much as I can. And to prepare, I did receive from the governor's chief of staff the transition report that Jenny pulled together, which identified items and concerns in each of the divisions, projects that are happening and underway. So I don't want folks to feel like I'm going to come in with some drastic curveball and have you head in a different direction, but to work with each of the division directors to figure out where are the pressure points, where are there some political concerns that I can begin working on and trying to help us to move initiatives forward. I've heard about lack of personnel and lack of funding for operating budgets that in some cases have been historic from previous administrations. So I certainly will try to work on those issues as we move forward. I shared, and I'll share with the directors tomorrow, a story. Years ago, when I was at Snow College, I served on the board of directors for an IHC hospital. And they handed out to all the board members a book that's called If Disney Ran Your Hospital, 9.5 Things You Would Do Different. And I won't take time to read through the whole quote that I shared, but the essence of it is this was an executive who worked for Disney Corporation for many years, was in Southern California, the happiest place on earth, and learned all about customer service and those sorts of things. And then he started working in the healthcare industry and became a consultant for hospitals. And he talks about this piece that I shared this morning, and you'll probably hear me share from time to time. He talked about how oftentimes hospitals, well, not often, every time, if you've been to a hospital or health clinic, send you a follow-up survey because they want to know, was the doctor professional, did their direction help, was the staff nice, was the facility clean, and those sorts of things. And much of that's driven by the regulations that came with Obamacare. But he talked about the fact that those satisfaction surveys really are fool's gold, that it allows agencies to gather a tremendous amount of data. But it doesn't do anything really to move the needle on being loyal, being a loyal customer, or building a sense of loyalty among your clients. And so he shares an experience of traveling. He obviously traveled a lot. He was at one location and stayed at the usual hotel that he stayed at was full, so he booked a room at the Residence Inn by Marriott. And on one of the mornings, as he left the hotel to go out and get in his car to drive off to his hospital, he saw a note, business card, stuck under the windshield wiper of his car, and he just thought, as we all would, oh crap, somebody's hit my car, scratched it, dented it, done something. But when he picked up the card and read it, it just said, windows on us, have a great day, maintenance department. And the maintenance department there took the time on that one particular day to go out and wash the windshield of every car in the parking lot. And he said, and he talked about how that single act on that morning created a sense of loyalty between he and Residence Inn. And he was quite amazed. He spoke with the hotel manager about, was this some corporate policy? Was this something you came up with? Or did the maintenance person do this on his own? And she said, no, he did that on his own, because we have a saying here that if you don't, wish I had the perfect or the exact quote. If we don't do something to make a difference that people will recognize, then why would they ever come back? And a powerful point, because part of what he shared in these satisfaction surveys is if you can remember nothing spectacular about your stay in a hotel. If the room was clean, the hotel was clean, the desk clerk was courteous, the food was warm, and there just was nothing that sticks out in your mind as being good or bad, then you're satisfied. And in essence, that's what most of those surveys conclude, that you were satisfied. But satisfaction doesn't do anything to build loyalty. And that single act built a tremendous amount of loyalty. Well, why do I share that? I've used that quite a bit in management training and with others, certainly in higher ed, as we look at the students as being our customers. That my challenge to each of us in the department is to please think of ways that you can reach out and not just satisfy a customer, whether that's another state agency or department or some member of the community that is required to interact with government, but to do something that's above and beyond that basic minimum that leaves people satisfied, and to look for ways that we can create some sense of loyalty or appreciation. That government ops is a great agency. Their people are very helpful. When I call with questions or problems or challenges, they're helpful in getting me to a resolution, finding resolution to those things, and to build that sense of quality out of the department or within the department with all of those that we interface with. And it's really up to you to determine what is that one thing you could do or other things that could be done to move us from folks just being satisfied to building a sense of loyalty to the department and all of the functions that we provide.
So next question, what are some of the main reasons you decided to accept this position?
That's a loaded question. I've spent 16 years in higher education, and while it was a wonderful path and allowed me to get all 4 of my kids through college, though there was some talking them into re-registering every semester, there's a lot of complexity to higher education, and particularly for folks that may be trying to get into higher ed or to earn a degree that are first generation college students. It can be a daunting task, and often folks get frustrated and give up in that process. And so there's kind of an art to learning how all the pieces fit together. And my sweet wife in particular helped our kids and nieces and nephews and a lot of folks navigate the higher ed experience. But there are a number of things in higher ed that are also quite frustrating. As you can imagine, it's a different world. It's a world of shared governance. So there's not while every school has a president and has vice presidents, every school has faculty. And quite frankly, faculty, particularly those who've earned tenure, really believe in their heart of hearts that they own the institution, that it's really theirs, that once they have tenure, they're going to be there for the rest of their career. And so they view it as their institution. And administrators come and go, and they're temporary stewards over the money or the facilities or academic programming creation and those sorts of things. So it ends up being an incredibly political environment. And you work through committees, and you have to make sure that you're in sync with the faculty senate and the staff association and so forth. And while that was a great challenge at both institutions and an ongoing process, because quite frankly, leadership in those organizations change from year to year. There was a part of me that just felt like I've had a great time in higher education, and I'd love to get back to the state side before I retire. And this was an opportunity that literally on Easter weekend, the chief of staff reached out, asked for a copy of my resume. My wife and I were actually camping at the time in a little trailer that we own. And I had my computer with me, luckily, because I had to add SUU to my resume. I had not been out looking for a job or actively pursuing anything. So I added my experience at SU to that resume, emailed it off to the chief, and he and I had a couple of phone calls. And then Wednesday, just a few days later, the governor reached out to me and asked if I'd join his team and come serve as the new executive director. I've known the governor since he was a county commissioner in Sanpete County because I was at Snow College and began there 16 years ago. So our paths crossed in good old Sanpete. And his dad was chair of the board of trustees for Snow College. So I've known the family. And in fact, his stepmom was on the IHC hospital board with me. So I've had interaction with the family for a lot of years. And John Pierpont and I worked together at Workforce Services years ago. So they're not strangers to me, and I wasn't a stranger to them. And the stars aligned. So I find myself here just a few weeks later, sitting in this office. And as I said at the beginning, I'm honored, I'm humbled, and I'm excited to be back at the state, and excited for the opportunity to work with you. And sometimes a change is as good as a rest, and I hope that will be the case.
Okay, next question. Welcome back, Marvin. As you know, the Division of Finance is without a director. What are your plans for filling that position?
I have 2 appointments on my calendar for next week. So the search process for a replacement there has been underway long before my arrival. And it's indicated to me that the committee that was involved in finding a new director has narrowed that down to 2 individuals, and I have appointments with each of them next week. And from that, the chief of staff wanted me to be on board before a final decision was made, to make sure that I'd be comfortable working with that individual as part of my leadership team. So I'll have those interviews. I think they're the latter end of next week, and hopefully should have an announcement pretty quick after that.
Welcome, Marvin. I appreciate your support and approach. Approval flows. Some don't make sense and delay things. I think there's a committee looking into this, but it would be great to see what needs to be fixed. So statement more than question.
Yeah.
The next question is, Jenny was attempting to improve dysfunction in government waste. Do you have any of the same goals?
Yeah, in fact, I'd love to, and I have always I've been in finance and budgeting and responsible for budgets for over 20 years in that process. And my standard comment to people is we're spending the taxpayers' dollars, quite frankly. None of us are excited about paying taxes at state, local, or federal level, quite frankly, and certainly well aware of that. And so I really look at taxpayer dollars and the tuition dollars that came in at the 2 higher ed institutions I worked at as a pretty sacred trust to be responsible for those funds, to not be extravagant. Higher ed is often accused of building Taj Mahal buildings, and while I might agree, some institutions are a little out of control. There are many buildings, and certainly those that I was involved in building, that have been on the more humble side, but are tremendous facilities for the institutions. So I am always anxious to look for waste. I made a comment in the cabinet meeting on Monday that the common joke in higher education is, if you believe in eternal life, then become an academic program, because they never close. And once one is created, it never goes away. And Scott Wyatt and I worked together at Snow and SUU. We had some academic programs go away, and really took the opportunity to look wholesale at who are we serving and how many are we serving, and is that the best use of our resources. And the world is changing, quite frankly. There's just so many new areas in the technology world, social media. I mean, we are migrating from the old minerals and mining economy into a global economy that relies on technology immensely, and so higher ed is slow to change. I think governments tend to be a little slow to change as well, but we've got to keep pace with the world that's changing rapidly around us. And so I do think it causes us to need to go back and look at, are there things we're doing that we frankly don't need to do anymore? Are there things, even at a practical level, are there reports being generated that nobody reads? And Chris and Marilee and I had this conversation yesterday, because we tend to get in these habits of creating things, and then we just keep moving forward. And sometimes we've got to stop and pause and say, why do we do this? And I'm comfortable with people questioning those norms. And I heard a lot of time in higher education, that's the way we've always done it. And I'll tell you, the folks at Snow College got a little frustrated with me, because every time somebody told me that's the way we've always done it, I made it a point to jot down what that was and make sure that we broke it. So don't panic, because this is a massive organization, and we can't break everything at once. But I hope that folks feel comfortable questioning, is this something that we ought to continue doing, or is this something we could set aside and channel our resources in a more effective way, in a better way, or providing a service that's a newly created service because of the way the world is changing around us. So I'm not going to come in and have draconian budget cuts unless the economy goes south and we're directed. Those certainly happen from time to time. But my encouragement is for folks to look around and see what you're doing. Is there a better way to do it? Is there a more efficient way to do it? Are we doing things that just don't make sense? Are we generating reports that nobody reads, and those sorts of things, to be more efficient with a taxpayer dollar?
Okay, one more question here. How would you characterize your management style?
I absolutely love, and I love getting to know people. And in my world, while everybody brings some technical expertise to the table, it's really a relationship issue. And we can accomplish more if we have a relationship with each other, and a relationship with the politicians that ultimately make decisions or pass bills and legislation. So I am not a micromanager. I don't like watching over somebody's shoulder. I'm not going to question everything everybody does. I'm grateful and look forward to working with each of the division directors and the senior leadership here in the department to establish that sense of camaraderie and trust, that I know things are being taken care of and are being managed well. And then try not to drill down too far in the details. My default position is to tend to drill down into details, and I probably will ask a lot of questions, particularly as I come up to speed on issues. But I trust that if people in their position, they're there for a reason, and they're doing a good job, and they're being effective in their position, and I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for the contribution. And so I am not, we recently hired a dean down at SU. This might be telling stories, and I'll try not to tell too many higher ed stories, but who came in with the approach that you need to turn everybody's world upside down. Fire people that you don't think you're going to get along with, change leaders and managers, and just kind of shake the organization to the core, and then rebuild it with a team that will ultimately feel beholden to you as the leader and know that you're the person in charge. I thought it was the craziest thing that I'd ever heard, and I have no intentions of operating that way. I never have in the past, but again, come in and assume the role, assess and analyze all the divisions and where the pressure points are and the needs are, and then apply my relationships, my connections, my knowledge to try to help those things better and to help move them along. So you should not expect to see a ton of memos from me announcing a flurry of changes, because that's not how I operate. I'm happy to just be here and to assume the role and move forward together as part of the team.
That's the last question. So unless anybody has anything else or any other stories to tell.
Well, awesome. I keep looking at the screen, and it looks like we have many of you working from home or remotely, and I actually look forward to seeing how well that works. We had a lot of conversations in higher ed. Again, my apologies for the reference, but not many people work from home in higher ed, and obviously cashiers need to be in cashiers, and food service folks need to be cooking food, and faculty need to be teaching classes and so forth. So it's a little bit of a different environment, but it seems to me the state has embraced the telecommuting option. I hope it's working well and been effective for each of you. It has been kind of interesting to show up here on the third floor and see a lot of empty cubicle space and so forth. So I'm grateful that we've got a whole workforce that's getting things done at home, and I hope that's a productive environment for you. I tried my best in my last position to make sure that Wednesdays were free from appointments so that I could have a work at home Wednesday. That tended to work about twice a month. And I found that I was more productive and efficient if I wasn't bothered by phone calls, didn't need to, or I could ignore email and focus on projects that I needed to get done. And I always seem to work more efficiently in shorts and a t-shirt than in a suit and tie. So I hope to the extent that works, that's helpful for you as well. So again, feel free to stop by or catch me in the hall and introduce yourself. I'm thrilled with the opportunity to be with you, to be part of the team, and look forward to just moving our initiatives and projects forward and rolling up our sleeves and working side by side with you on that process. And again, I enjoy making new friends. As I said farewell last week, I indicated to folks I never delete people from my contact list, but I just keep adding to it. And I hope that I'll add a lot more contacts to that list here at Government Ops. And I got about 11 or 1,200 folks in my phone, and I'll just continue to add to that as well. So thanks for all you do. Thanks for your commitment to the state of Utah, to the taxpayers who provide for us, and thanks for providing all the services you do. I know as a consumer of many of those services throughout my career, I'm grateful for dedicated folks that are providing that, often behind the scenes and quiet, unnoticeable ways or positions, but we provide a lot of the nuts and bolts operation for the state, and I think it's critical that we do so. As I said to my team, and I've been responsible for administrative services at both of the institutions that I've served, in addition to budget, finance, and so forth. When I hear no complaints, but I hear praises, then I know that we're doing very well. And I had a lot of departments there that just operated extremely well, rarely received complaints, but often received praise, even from departments like facilities and IT and so forth. So it is possible to meet all those needs and expectations and keep people happy. And I sure hope we'll continue to do that at the state level. Thanks for your welcome. I've seen a lot of notes scroll by, and congratulations and thanks and so forth, and I truly appreciate it. Look forward to working with you.